el barrio de Atucucho. No sé si está por ahí. Viviana, vecina. Besi, hola.
Ay, buenas, ¿cómo me les va a todos? ¿Cómo están?
Hola.
¿Cómo me les ha ido? Ay, yo más nerviosa causando las
I'm actually very nervous, by using our new technologies for communication and technology. I'm very good, Teresa, actually. Thank you very much for inviting me to this amazing meeting. I have a lot of things to tell you, actually. Yes, please do, Viviana. Well, let me introduce myself first because I know that most of you don't know me. Nice to meet you all. My name is Gumercinda. Everybody knows me as La Besi. I come from Colombia. And right now I am in Quito, Ecuador. I am living in the Atacucho neighborhood. And well, I came here flying away from violence, in my country. And well, you can imagine all that I've had to go through. And yeah, around the year of 1999, yes, there was a lot of ash that was falling down on Quito. So I went on and I helped everyone clean those ashes, and then we received the visit of some beautiful and amazing researchers and scientists that came to work. And well, they told us that here in Atacucho, and that was something that I didn't know actually,
sobre las multiamenazas.
about multiple hazards. Yeah, think about it. I even learned that term, and I didn't know what that was actually. So I mean, there's a lot of crime here. We have the volcano. There's a lot of risks here. So I wanted to work with those scientists so that I could contribute more and learn more. And I am a facilitator actually. Not, I do community work, and in Colombia, I was theater director. What do you think of me now? So I learned a lot of things actually, and well, now what I do is I sell underwear. Now look at that, here they are. If you want me to send them to you, we do export, every size available for you. So yeah, my dear neighbors, I just came, live here, and sell my underwear here. Yeah. So I got to know a lot of neighbors, here in the neighborhood, and well, whenever you want to come and visit us, you're more than welcome. Actually, I'm gonna do a very special invitation for you. Let's do an exercise, among all of us, so we can, get together and be more in trust. Because we're gonna work in Atacucho, right? So my invite to you is for us to do this very special and interesting exercise. Okay, are you guys ready? Yeah. I'm gonna see if you ate breakfast, all right? If you ate properly.
¿Cómo están?
Oh well, how's everyone doing? I can't hear you.
Tan lindos.
Oh, you're so nice. Well, I'm gonna exercise, right? We're going to this workshop, as a director that I am. You're going to divide yourselves in groups. I don't know how you're going to do that, but you're going to divide yourselves in groups, and each group has to tell a story or a narrative that lasts, right? Do you remember that we asked for you to bring very special objects for you, like my underwear, that I brought here with me. I just take it everywhere with me. And that's the objects that you had to bring, that remind you of your territory. For example, this one. It reminds me of some very special people that I met in Colombia that we were working risk management with. And you won't imagine, those women had their underwear, they had a firm in what they did. That's an expression in Spanish. And well, with that story, each participant is going to have a role, and a character. and each group is going to have a subject that you're going to be working with, whether that is disaster risk management, multiple hazards, strikes, well, several subjects, right? So each of you is going to have a very specific subject within that story and that narrative. And each group has to choose. All right, so you have to use those objects that you brought along in that story. You know, I don't know if you have like hats, accessories, whatever it is you brought, and the objects, you know. And in the end, voluntarily, two groups are going to share their story with us. What do you think, huh? But before we move along with that, let's move our bodies, all right? Let's move our bodies. Yeah, eh? I want you to move your bodies right there where you're at. Okay, so you're gonna do what I do. Ready? Let's move those underwear, eh? Okay, let's start moving our shoulders. Yeah, let's do some extensions. If you want, you can do some faces like mine, you know, some very cool faces. Then we're gonna move our arms. Yes, exactly like that. Yes, and then we're gonna move like that, okay? Do this, do this. That's it, fast, 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 fast. Come on, move it, move it. Ah, yeah, you look beautiful. Like that, exactly. Now let's move the mouth like this. Ah, yeah, I want you to do the sounds and everything, all right?
Sakura, vamos a
Okay,
moverlas.
okay, shake your body. Let's move our hands. Let's activate our bodies, activate our creativity, our hearts. That's it. That's right. Yeah, exactly. You're doing it awesome. Okay, move it, move it, move it. That's just beautiful, beautiful. All right, I think we're all ready. Now, okay, ready? Let's take a deep breath. And beautiful Adriana is going to help us to divide these different groups, right? And Teresa is going to share the instructions for this workshop. You know, if you have any doubts or questions, please ask her, but feel free to do anything you want, create any story you like in your own respective groups. Thank you very much, Gumercinda. I love having you here. I love having met you in Colombia, but now you're living at Tucucho. No, that's, you know, we're very lucky to have you. Very lucky for you to be in Quito. I shared a Google Doc with you. The instructions are there. If you can all open it, yeah, it's working. If you're into that. Okay, so the instructions are posted there. Gumercinda, you told us to prepare a 10-minute presentation. Maybe that's a bit too long. It can be shorter, right? 3-4 minutes long, right? Yes, of course. Okay, so everyone's clear in what you have to do? We're going to divide ourselves in groups, and Gumercinda is going to be visiting the different groups. So, Adriana, are you ready?
Sí, listo.
To divide us? Yes? Clean my face. You know, I was laughing a bit too much, so.
Deberían poder sumarse a otros grupos, no sé si es que les apareció algún mensaje en la computadora, porque ya no deberían estar en este grupo.
Cinda, please choose someone to present. What do you think about the exercise? Huh? How did you feel? You know, we're just gonna improvise. You know, who wants to present? Who wants to act right now? What group? Group number 1, 2.
Yeah.
Group number 5. Come on. Yes, of course. Let's do it. Please, group number 5, you can raise your hands so everyone knows who we are. I don't think we all fit in the same screen. Yeah, you have to choose gallery view at the top, right? And then you can see everyone. I have 2 pages, but anyway, let's start. Mom, Mom, I can't see you. Mom, I want a candy. Mom. Wait. We're going to the store, but wait. You know, we have to be careful. We have to. Come on, Mom. I want a candy, please. You and your candy, man. Come on, wait. Bessie. Bessie's not even coming out to sell us her candy. Come on. Bessie, good morning. Bessie, good morning. How are you doing? No, you know, just wondering if you can do a favor for me, sell me a pound of chicken and, you know, some candies for my child bothering me. Yeah, of course. Do you want me to just like write it down, or are you going to pay me now? No, I'll pay you. I'll pay you. Yeah, of course. Just give it to me. You know, no, a good pound. You know, a good old pound and some candies for my daughter. Hey, Bessie, you don't know what just happened. I have to tell you something. Yeah, don't worry me. You know, with this pandemics and everything.
Vecinita, ¿qué está pasando?
Yeah, tell me too. You know, I want to know what's happening. Come on. I'll tell you. You know, it's concerns the entire neighborhood. You know, the old couple up there. You know, in the other house, she lost her job. You know, and they don't even have a source of income, and they can't. I mean, they have to do something as a neighborhood to solve their situation. Yeah. I mean, we can get together, you know, among everyone, and you know, just contribute with a pound of chicken or meat, and we can just drop by and, you know, give her some stuff. If you agree. What about the guy that lives out here, Mom? What's up with him? Hello, neighbors. What do you? Why don't you share some candy with the guy out here? You know, come on, kid. No, I don't want to share my candy. Come on, we gotta be solidary. Okay, you're all right. Here you go, old Marco. Hey, thank you, kid. It's awesome that with the pandemics we've come together to meet more neighbors, you know, and you can help me feed my pigs. Yeah. So let's just continue working on helping all our neighbors, like this one right here. Oh yeah, my arm hurts. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have a job. I'm sick. You know, I'm just a burden for all you. Uh, don't worry. The Holy Spirit is gonna help us out. You know, don't worry. I'm gonna go to the store. I've got some coins in my pocket. Let's just see what we can do with that. We'll probably be able to buy half a pound of rice, but don't worry. You know, just trust in God. Yeah. Here you go. I also have a couple of coins. You know, yeah. Don't worry. Just stay here, rest, and I'll go out and see what I can find. Yeah. I'll stay put. 'Cause, you know, my head hurts, my body hurts, and I just can't move. Okay. So she goes to the store and she's like, yeah, good morning, neighbor. How you doing? Yeah. Good morning. How are you doing? You know, I'm very complicated. You know, I don't have a job. I took care of seniors, and I can't do that anymore. My husband is also physically ill. We don't have an income. They allowed us to work. So that was good, but like I don't know what we're gonna do, you know. But I have a couple of coins here to see if you can tell me half the price, you know, so that we can just fill our stomachs with rice and maybe some tea. Yeah. Come on, Bessie. Like, why don't you just like make a list of whatever you need and just take it, and we're gonna pay for it as a neighborhood, you know. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Like, just go to your house, rest, and we'll just drop it off later on today. Oh, thank you. God bless you. I mean, I just wish that everyone was as solitary and as good as you. If that were the case, people wouldn't die of hunger and of this horrible situation. But thank you. God bless you all. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. No, no, don't worry, no worry. I mean, we're gonna go up there and drop off your groceries later today.
Un aplauso. Activen pues los micrófonos, pues. Activen los micrófonos.
Saludos,
Que se
saludos.
escuche, que se
Yeah, yeah.
escuche.
Come on. Big round of applause, everyone.
Uy, maravilloso estos actrices y actores.
Oh, yeah, incredible. These, actors and actresses. That was awesome. So who's next? Group number.
Éramos el 2, no el
Dos.
3. Pero sí,
Dos,
era-
Liliana.
Group number.
Grupo 2, perdón.
Group. Sorry, we were group number 2. I was mistaken. So group number 2 then.
Empezamos el grupo 2.
Sí.
La
So
vez
let's
sí.
begin. Group 2.
Señor alcalde, venga, ve a mi casa. Que me
Mr. Mayor, come on, come see my house. You see, how my house is crooked. It's gonna happen about it. Come on, listen to me. I can't do anything. It's your problem. You have to find a solution yourself. I can't do anything. Call a technician if you want. But come on, I'm gonna, be homeless. No, I can't do anything. Call a technician. Mr. Mayor, we've come over already. As technicians, we've come several times and we've seen cracks in the foundations. We've seen that some houses present these cracks, and we are worried, that a heavy rainfall can actually destroy a couple of houses. Now, here's our technician, Juan Gabriel, right? Right? We've come and we've identified some problems, right? Mom, is the house gonna fall down? Is our dog gonna die? Yes, it is. Son, come on, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Technician, please do something about it. We're gonna be homeless, and you're saying that nothing's gonna happen. It is, and it is. Well, first we have to do a couple more studies. There's a lot of things that we don't know yet, about the problem, so we can't really give an opinion. Mom, am I gonna be able to go to school still?
Nos preocupa, señor alcalde.
I mean that we're worried, right? We're worried, right, Mr. Mayor? Yes, we have to do more studies, but something else. I mean, we're going to have to do something else. We need your support. What am I going to do if I'm homeless? What am I going to do? Help us. Help. Please. Listen, neighbor, I think there's nothing we can do. Technicians indicate us that there's a problem. We can look at a solution. So we can, work together, find a solution, along with the technicians. And do you think that's agreeable?
No sé,
Técnicos.
pues sí, no sé, los señores técnicos que me digan qué piensan.
I don't know. Mr. Technician, what do we have to do? What should we do? I mean, Mayor says that there's nothing wrong. Well, I mean, I think the mayor has become a bit more sensible. His heart is a bit more willing to help, so we can move forward a little bit more and see what solutions we're gonna propose for neighborhood. But don't worry, neighbor, something's gonna happen. Mom, are they gonna help us? Hopefully they will. Hopefully they will. What we're gonna start doing is by analyzing the house. It seems that your roof is crooked and it's a bit too heavy, and that's what's causing the problems. Okay. God bless you. Thank you all.
Perfecto. Con los
Neighbor, we're gonna meet next week, all right, with the technicians and with your kid, and it's all gonna be all right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you.
Que se escuchen los aplausos, por
Hey,
favor.
bravo, please, big round of applause. Yeah.
Eso, muy bien. ¿Cómo se sintieron?
Okay, cool. So, how did everybody feel?
¿Qué les pareció?
Tell me, what did you think?
Todo, quiero saberlo todo.
Everything. I want to know everything.
O si no, no rico estos calzones.
Just taking on these roles and experiencing what these people are experiencing it's very hurtful, right? I mean, you really feel it, and you can understand what they're going through, kind of. Yes, sometimes, as technicians, we feel like we can't do anything, you know, because sometimes the problems are very complicated, and sometimes there aren't fast solutions to their problems. And the people that live there are, of course, they're desperate, you know, because they're seeing that their houses are experiencing problems, and sometimes it's not very easy to help them. So that's complicated, you know.
A mí lo que me gustó fue que
I liked
pusieron el rol de que el
is
científico
that
quiere más datos si nunca tiene
you put
suficiente.
the role that the scientist always wants more data, he wants more information, he wants more studies, you know, and it's never enough. And in the meantime, people are still living their realities, you know, and they're not seeing any changes. So I think that was very interesting, you know, it's a self-criticism that we don't only have to look at the scientific part, you know, that's interesting, of course, but there's a social part behind it that's also very important.
Me gustó mucho las redes de solidaridad.
I like the solidarity networks that you represented, you know, how we can articulate these. And Isabel's acting was awesome, you know. She took on the role of this neighbor that's very organized, you know, and organizes everyone, because these people exist, right? I mean, they live in the neighborhoods, and there's always someone that just takes on that role.
¿Alguien más? Gumercinda.
Someone else?
Solo quería añadir que como dijo Male,
Just wanted to say that, as Malena said, the role that Isabel took on the first group is very important, and that we have to look and identify this type of leaders, because they motivate participation from everyone else, you know, and necessarily it's people from the directive, you know, but I mean, it's people that have this attitude and they have a predisposition to work, right, and to help. And, you know, particularly to keep in mind this solidarity idea, you know, behind everything. And I think this is very useful, and these roles, you know, identifying these roles are going to be very helpful for us and for every one of our work lines.
El rol del niño, porque a veces
I was very intrigued by the kid, you know, because sometimes we tend to overlook kids, you know, young people, but they understand, they're there, they see everything, and they have really big potential to generate change, you know. I mean, the kids understand, they see, they ask questions, and when we go, you know, when we went to Miravalle, they told us, like, there's a lot of kids here, and we want kids to learn from you, you know. So that was very good for me, that we can recognize kids' potential for change.
Digamos, en el rol del habitante de calle es interesante.
You know, from my role, the homeless guy, it's interesting to see that from the vulnerable people, there's an even more vulnerable group that is sometimes invisibilized, and that it's hard to understand what their role is in a process such as this. I mean, beyond the fact that it's a person that belongs to a group that's going to receive something, he or she also is a part of a neighborhood organization, right? And I mean, he is also a very vulnerable person. So what did you think? What do you think about this theater? Has any of you experienced theater before? Have you had any experience with theater? Yes? No? I mean, I think it's awesome that some of you have. And for those of you that haven't, let me tell you something. Everyone can, even, you know, theater actors can act. So let me tell you something. I mean, acting is for everyone, you know, theater is for everyone. And Viviana is going to tell you a bit more about those theatrical methodologies. I mean, we're going to be learning a bit about Augusto Boal, Brazilian, that has a very nice theory about oppressed theater. He has a very interesting theory, which says that everyone can do theater, everyone can act. And this helps a lot. So that every community, you know, every oppressed community and every oppressed sector, through theater, can exteriorize these subjects that we saw today, you know. So we can go to our break, right now, and afterwards we are going to continue with the exercise. I mean, Viviana, the other, the other Viviana, she's going to make a presentation about those participatory methodologies. In this case, related to theater. Just big old hug for everyone. It was beautiful, and thank you very much. And thank our neighbor, our Bessie.
Estos lindos, vea.
Thank you everyone, and yeah, if you wanna win this underwear, please just text me. They're multiple purpose. So it's 9:28 in Quito. So let's come back at 9:35. Let's just have a couple of minutes of break, and yeah, we'll listen to Marina's presentation. Thank you very much.
Hola, ya vamos alistándonos para la presentación de Marina.
Hello. Let's start getting ready for Marina's presentation.
Voy a compartir mi pantalla, ¿sí?
I'm going to share my screen with you all right? Yeah, Marina, please.
Marina, fuiste la examinadora de mi amigo Bruno.
Marina, you examined my friend Bruno.
Sí, le fue súper
Yeah?
bien.
No, yeah. He did very good, you know, his dissertation thesis.
Qué pequeño que es el mundo, ¿no?
It's a small world. I didn't know, but they started sending, you know, the congratulations emails, you know, everything's good, photos and all. And I saw you.
Hizo conmigo todo el doctorado.
Así que tú también estás por terminar, entonces.
Yo terminé en marzo,
Ah, ya terminaste, ya, qué bien.
pero hicimos todo el doctorado juntos.
I give my presentation in Spanish,
Ya que creo que la mayoría
given that the majority speaks Spanish, but we have the interpreting, so, you know, maybe I'm going to use a bit of Spanglish. I'm going to mix a couple of words, but Caesar can forgive me for that. So after our interesting exercise that we had, I'm in charge of the most boring part of this session, which is talking about the theory, you know, behind all these participatory methodologies. But specifically, I'm going to share with you about what we call participatory action research, as we call it in English. So we start with the exercise of our colleague, because we're interested in delving into what is knowledge when we are working, you know, with a participatory paradigm. This epistemological subject, this, you know, idea of what type of knowledge are we interested in to produce, and how we can co-produce knowledge with participants. So, starting with what is it, you know, participatory action research? I want to tell you a bit about this methodological approach. It's not a method, it's not a tool, but within the framework of PAR, we can see many methods and tools. And our colleague is going to talk a bit more about theater, as she said. But as its name explains, it has the explicit intention to break the traditional molds, so to say, for research. And it tries to create bridges between theory and practice by using this idea of dialectic between action and reflection. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. But it's always searching to improve a specific situation of those involved in this research.
Es importante señalar que
It is important to point out that, particularly because I'm talking with many colleagues nowadays that don't really come from the experiences or the fields of participatory methodologies, that there has been a sort of epistemological struggle, you know, that has been going on for a fair few years to open up a bit of space for these new approaches. But nowadays, we practice this methodological approach and we teach it. You know, it's taught in thousands of universities worldwide, and I mean, it's managed to obtain its own academic spaces, such as magazines, actual research logo. That's part of the editor team, you know, working with Hillary Bradbury, and and a group of people that have actually created an academic space for this methodological approach. So where does it come from? I mean, what are its roots? Well, it has a Latin American history that I'm sure most of you are most familiar with than I am. And in the 1960s, 70s, it kind of comes from this context, where intellectuals, researchers like Orlando Valesborga, they were looking for a way to be closer to popular movements and to value the knowledge that these movements have. I mean, it's a knowledge that's based on their experience, their life experience. And that is a part of a desire to change and transform the educational system, specifically. The work of Paulo Freire as well from Brazil, I'm sure you're all familiar with. And this entire debate, that has to do with popular education. But it also has roots from what we call the global north, which come from different branches of academic spaces, intellectual spaces, but also from the practice itself. And well, Carl Lewin is very well known with his theories and his proposal based on this idea of having a space where we can share between action and reflection, which is still nowadays the methodological base foundation for PAR. And we are talking about something that came out in the 1940s when we say that Lewin was the first to talk about this methodology by actually naming it. But also in the 20th century, after there's this whole process of opening more space from the social movements, feminist movements, and so on, where it kind of just connects with the dynamic that had place in Latin America. And in this process, of solidarizing the process. I mean, and it still has frameworks that it has to follow, of course. But I mean, they come together based on this need. They come from different historical backgrounds, but they kind of come together in this idea of that we have to make knowledge available for everyone. And it's kind of like the example we saw earlier on, and how our colleagues said that we can all perform in theater. It has to do with the fact that we all have knowledge and that we can contribute to creating new knowledge that can help towards social transformation. With the purpose of collectively creating knowledge, it is in a methodological approach that it's very much linked to social change, right? It's a methodology that is focused towards change, always trying to open up space and give this space to marginalized groups. But we see that there is also a more instrumental use, right? And that is the idea that if we used the experience to understand the roots of the problems, we can create more practical solutions, and they are also more effective. And well, some of you might think, why are we talking about this type of methodologies, that are aimed towards social change, perhaps seem a bit too radical in a project that is more focused on risk management, right? And on multiple hazards. Well, thinking about the workshop we had on March of this year, here's our picture. And we were discussing about what it means to be a part of an interdisciplinary project and a project that's looking for change. That's actually trying to use research to create an impact in Quito. And I remember that during that meeting, we had this exercise, that we can see it down here, where on the right, we had this idea that we think that it's important that for us to allow communities at risk and policymakers to contribute to the creation of knowledge and the flow of research. But we also thought that it was important to build the research in a firm way from the theory. And precisely what BAR approach tries to do is to create a space where we can play with both sides. Yeah. I mean, what I remember very well is that in March, everyone, most of us were names pretty much in the center, right? I mean, I'm not saying that every single one has to work in radical transformation and, social transformation in Quito. What I'm saying is that as a project and as an interdisciplinary team, this is a part of what interests us, What's also important is that we talk about these participatory methodologies, a lot, but sometimes it seems that it's only for people that live in communities. But we can also use them when we are trying to work at the city level or at the policymaker level or decision maker level. Okay, so what does it mean to work with these approaches? So there's participatory paradigm, and this is the work of Peter Reason and John Herron, that they came up with this extended epistemology. Basically, what they propose is that there's different levels of knowledge, that they're all important and they're all valid. And we have to look for ways to work with every single one of them, aiming towards action, right? To actually making decisions and changing something in the world. Starting with experience. This knowledge comes directly from our life experiences. In our case, it's an experience, as we saw in our previous exercise, of living with risk. And we saw, in the reflections that people talked about the emotions that come out when we think about what people live, what their experiences are, the empathy that can come up when we start talking about this type of experiences. But of course, as I mentioned before, it doesn't only have to do with the risk that communities are living with, but also with, what would the experience be of the technician or the public worker that is a part of the risk management system? His or her experience is also very important. And we have what we call presentational knowledge. And that's what Viviana is going to talk about later on. It's this part of art. Because this type of knowledge has to do or appears when we are trying to communicate our life experience, but communicate it in a ill-structured manner, Then we go to propositional knowledge, and here's where we academics, researchers spend a lot of time. It's theorizing. This is using the knowledge that we have created or the information we have collected, analyze it and organize it and kind of formalize them, publish them, write them down, etc. It's a very important area of knowledge, it's very necessary. What this paradigm says is that when we have all these levels of knowledge together is when we can actually reach practical knowledge. And this is what guides us towards social change, right? To know how to do something, to get to know how to change something in my life, is just as important, and it's also a necessary knowledge. So, as Peter Reason says, According to him, and according to the people that propose these approaches, for them, the most valid and useful knowledge that's closest to the real life experience of the people and that's more useful, in the sense of actually creating change, is when we use and we recognize in our research all the types of knowledge. Now, that sounds, very beautiful in theory, on paper, and it seems easy, right? We just divide the different types of knowledge and then we use them. But how do we operationalize it and we know, that's a very, very good structured criticism of how difficult it can actually be to manage and to navigate navigate power relations that are very well set forth. Could be between the expert and the politician, the expert and the community, but we have to find ways in which we can navigate through this power realities. That doesn't mean that we just have to make them disappear, right? Because they are there and there will always be their influence in everyone. And I mean, they can ask us, in a very deep way, what is our role? These methodologies, with their intention of democratizing knowledge, they invite us to think who we are and what is our role in a social change process. And the chairs that I have put down here, let's say invited space, for some of us that work in development, we use this idea of invited space to recognize that we are working, that we create these barriers. I mean, not barriers, but the parameters in which we are inviting people to participate in. And in this project, this particular project, this is our reality. I don't know if there are certain spaces of emergent processes based on social movements in Quito in which we can actually insert ourselves into and work with or walk along with. But I imagine that in its majority, it's going to be spaces that we are inviting people to participate in, right? That's very important. That's very important regarding the expectations that we are generating and the role that we are playing. So, what do we do with this challenge? How do we navigate this power struggles? So, there are very well-known tools that have been used quite a bit in the social sciences, the critical sciences, and particularly with the researchers that use qualitative methodologies. It is critical reflection, how Paulo Freire named it, reflexivity, as other academics name it. So there are several levels in which we can ask ourselves what our role is. We can debate with ourselves, in front of a mirror, and we can reflect about our own research status, research situation, beyond ourselves, beyond our economic status, political condition. In the exercise we did, we started seeing this solidarity dynamics, where people talked about finding a leader and also finding a space where these types of changes can actually happen. But we have to understand the context for that, and we have to reflect about the context, to know where these spaces might come up and where they cannot definitely come up. And sometimes where we can invite people to participate in a process and to share their knowledge, and where we cannot, because it can generate certain risks for them. That's where the ethical part comes in, and the safeguards as well. So we're working it right now. So our intention here and our starting point to ensure quality in a PAR process is to recognize our role as research tools. I mean, we are a part of the research mechanisms. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to wrap up with a couple of ideas. regarding on how, we've talked about very theoretical way, but the how to do PAR, being that it is not a method, it's a methodological approach, what it requires is a very good process design. A process in which we are going to facilitate participation and in which we are going to understand and get to know different types of knowledge. So, as I was saying, starting as of 1940s from Craig Lewin's theories in the way in which we use cycles that are facilitated by action and reflection, that is the basic scheme of a PAR process. But one of the things that's critical, that's extremely important, and that's very related to how we open this the co-production process, with people, how we create these spaces for co-researchers. That's what's critical. Sometimes people talk about safe spaces. Sometimes they talk about communicative spaces. These are processes in which we can open a situation where people can actually participate, And to wrap up, I told you that this idea of PAR is a methodological approach that suggests we can talk about how this approach might be useful for you, or if you're already implementing it in an explicit or implicit way in the keto work, we can also talk about that. But within that methodology or that approach, we can see a lot of methods that can come together. Participatory methods, but also the so-called scientific method that most of you use in all the work you do. I mean, it has the openness to use different methodologies that can allow us to go into these different epistemological spaces and into these different ways of obtaining knowledge, with the intention of starting from the life experiences of people. I'm going to finish there. Sorry if I took a bit more time. No, Marina, that was excellent. We're just going to move on to Viviana's presentation, and then we're going to open up the space for some questions. Viviana, please.
Listo, te escuchamos.
Okay, you can go, Viviana.
No te escuchamos, Vivi.
We can't hear you, Viviana. I think your microphone might be off. We can see your screen, but we can't hear what you're saying. There? Yes, that's better. Okay, so let's start. With this presentation called the use of theater as a participatory methodology to generate transformation, from the arts, in this case from theater. Boal is a theater theorist from Brazil who created a method for actors and non-actors, a collection of activities, games to work with different communities, both in Latin America and in Europe. And well, he says that theater is a way to obtain knowledge, It's a living art, and it's also a way to transform society. It can help us transform the future instead of just passively waiting for it to arrive. That's a reflection from Boal, and with this reflection, I'd like to discuss this starting point, There's this project called Identificarte in the University of Manizales in Colombia and the University of East Anglia in England. And well, this methodological project originated and worked with different communities in different territories of Colombia. And through their stories, through theater, we worked with local risk management, and from those scenarios, we created risk governance. And further on, I'll talk about this aspect, that involved the participation of many peoples, many actors from the community, many institutions, and particularly theater. Community theater was one of the participatory methodologies that was most used in the project. And it has as a center the collective creation of knowledge, that allows for people to tell their stories and democratize knowledge. And it's also aesthetic presentation, and you have the possibility to theatralize these experiences, and create links. And we're more focused on the process, not really on the final product, but on the process. Some techniques that Val mentions we can implement is image theater. This has a very important objective, that is to help us think with images, us and the participants as well. Okay, let's say that we are a bit limited by the technological mean, because theater is a living art where we have to touch, we have to feel, we have to use all of our senses, right? And well, in this way, kind of debate without the use of words. And we're focusing on the use of our body, on our body language. And the idea behind theater is that every single person is an actor, is an actress, because we act. But we're also spectators, because we're looking at other people's realities and we are observing what happens. And so Boal says that we have two roles, that we are spectators. I mean, we are spectators, but we're also acting. So theater, well, theater equals body. So if theater equals body, then through that body, we have the possibility of telling. Community theater has several characteristics, and it was originated in Latin America, in Argentina, actually, from the social struggles that they were living at the time. And I want to, very, very broadly, kind of get you more familiarized with certain characteristics of community theater. First of all, it's a community service. It's a creative way that we all have, and that we can do with our neighbors and for our neighbors, with our own resources, with whatever is around us, always with our own resources. And it promotes a community benefit. And it also promotes spaces for us to get together, to be creative. It generates links with people, it generates empathy. It gives us a possibility to build stories and identities, those stories that are safe in territories, in communities, and it allows us to reach them in a different way. And I'd like to talk about how researchers, how scientists, in their different roles and institutions, actually arrive to communities with methodologies that are a bit ancient, if I can say so, with methodologies that they are not interested in. I mean, video bill, presentations, I mean, theater and art, drawing, painting, they are expressive means that communities see as different, and that we can use to research in a different way, and we can use in a different way. Besides that, community theater has a very important social aspect, because we're using the public space, and we don't need to go to an actual theater or go to the artistic elites of the city, to present ourselves, rather in the public space. And that's where the communities can actually express themselves and show their artistic creativeness. Everybody is discussing, everybody is dialoguing with their bodies. They're transmitting emotions. and their creativity and expressiveness kind of come together in a collective presentation. The theater of the oppressed, as a participatory methodology, says that we don't really have to focus on the end product. You know, that's not the most important thing. What's the most important thing is the process. The process where we are seeing the stories come to life and where communities are sharing, because it values emotions, it values what's most important to the people, and it's a memory exercise. You know, that's very important, because all these communities are telling, you know, or they're telling what's happening, they're narrating their stories, they're saying what's happening in their streets with their neighbors, and you know, all the emotions that they feel there. This methodology has different phases, and first going into the community, having the community validation, that's extremely important, and that the communities choose what is that they want to do. We don't have to come in and kind of impose what we want them to do, but rather for them to choose their artistic expression. Second phase is a construction and collective socialization of the theater script. You know, it's kind of more horizontal, no hierarchies. And then the third phase is improvisation. Improvisation is very important here. You know, we are validating what's happening in the moment through theater games, through our bodies, through collective creation. And the last phase is the community presentation. You know, that presentation is very important because everyone in the community mobilizes their knowledge, you know, they mobilize the resources, their own resources that they have as leaders, as artists, as members of the community. There's a lot of people that write poetry, they sing, they play instruments, and so on. So everyone just arrives and presents everything. And to finalize this character, you know, la Bessie, the neighbor, is a very important character. And the underwear that I brought with me actually created a lot of change, you know, and it moved people. Underwear as a very intimate element from everyone, just as the stories that they are telling us. So it made them connect. And after all this theater process, we create something that's very beautiful, that's risk governance. And that's the ability of the actors that are actually involved in the process, the community actors, you know, and they can be a part of decision making, the co-responsibility of policy making, social change. And through this, neighbors are starting to think about new ways of how to relate with one another, how to communicate, how to understand one another, and also how to understand institutions. And of course, community empowerment, daily action, citizen participation, what's endogenous, you know, what's from that territory, what's essential. Also the participation with institutions, formation of leaders, solidarity, and democratization of knowledge. Those are all results that come from this methodology. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Viviana. Thank you, Marina. Someone has a question, a reflection of what you just heard?
Jenny.
Jenny, please.
Hi, hello. So I noticed in the first presentation and then also now, one of the things that's really useful is using humor to kind of challenge stereotypes and make people think. Do you think, is that a dangerous thing to do because not everyone has the same sense of humor, or do you have any particular reflections on humor?
Viviana, ¿quieres contestar?
Viviana, do you want to answer? I think that humor is a very thin line, you know, between communities, between people. It's a human dimension that's very essential. And I think that it's one of the foundations of resilience, of community resilience. And we have to be very careful with it. We have to go, take baby steps. We need to know when we can use humor to actually approach communities and reach them, and to know very well the context, the people that live there. But I think that it's a universal language. Humor is a universal language that it kind of goes beyond socioeconomic, social-cultural barriers, language barriers, and the image itself, the body. It makes people laugh a lot more than words themselves. Yeah, very good question. Thank you. Someone else? A reflection, question, Marina, to Viviana? I wanted to say something. I wanted to say that I think it's very interesting, all these new technologies are very interesting. But particularly, I think that it's a way to reach people deep within themselves. Basically, more than a discussion we can have with them, it's very useful, and it helps us reach them faster, create trust faster. I mean, if you're working along with them at the same level in all these decision-making processes, the time that it takes to create trust between people is shortened. I have that impression because they feel like you're also participating, that you're also part of that everyone is kind of the same. That's the whole idea behind it, right? That we can all get along, that we can all see each other under the same light, and through this we can work better and advance in our work. So I think that besides the importance that this all has, I think it's also important in this sense, of how long it takes to create trust. And I also think that it's more entertaining, because sometimes there are certain like sad stories, right? That come up that when you hear you get emotional, right? But through this methodology, despite the fact that you get very emotional, you cannot just feel sad, but rather you go towards empathy. So I think that's also very interesting and very, very cool. I think that it's a very good methodology we can apply and very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie. I'm going to move on. I think I see that Juan Gabriel, Marco, and Camilo have questions. So we're going to go in that order, please. Okay, so thank you for your presentations. Perhaps my question goes to Marina. There was a phrase that you showed in one of your slides that I hope I wrote down properly. You kind of said, how can they start participating in something where they think that the final decision is not in their hands? I'm talking about the community itself. So how can participatory action research that's looking to include the community and the people that we are hoping to benefit with our knowledge, or that we are looking to include in a process in the hopes of reaching something, when their decision doesn't really fall in our hands, I don't know the general process, how it works, but in some of our research studies, the municipality is who makes the decision, and the community tries to change that decision. And well, we can say a lot of things, do a lot of techniques and everything, but in the end, if the decision has already been taken, how can this participatory action research, how can it manage to find a path so that those decisions that have already been made by the municipality, in a one-sided way, sometimes without even asking technicians, community, universities, and the community, how can these methodologies help the community gain back the decision making? Thank you, Juan Gabriel. Let's move on to Marco, Marina, and then you can save your answer. Marco. Thank you, Marina and Viviana, for your presentations. They were very well complemented each other very well and effectively. Participatory action research has a long tradition in Latin America. When you see a trajectory of social sciences in the region, you can see of how important the academic exercise has been, particularly talking about promoting a social change. Maybe because of the limitations that exist in the region, economic ways, social ways, but also that our communities have always had a very participatory characteristic, right? Um, we've seen it in large processes, the entire movement around social household in Brazil, and all the results that they obtained regarding the bylaws of the city. They were a part of this process between the academics and a very active participation of the communities. It's a very, and all the social processes that we have seen, the so-called new social processes, they're also working around ideas of gender, environment. I mean, they're all mentioning this close relationship between social sciences, research, participation, and so on. So my question for both of you is, this relationship, it's always had a political sense, right? It's always the intellectual in Latin America that has been identified as a militant, as a part of this reivindication process. But nowadays, in the sense that the North Academy has been adopting these new processes and methodologies, I mean, how does this political process redefine itself? For example, theater, that we were talking today, it tries to reach different emotions, but it's not non-political, and not in the sense that I talked before. It's political, but it's a different type of political. So how do you think that the political has been redefined through the participatory action research methodologies? Thank you very much, Marco. Great question, as always. I'll let you think, a little while. And Camilo. Yes, Camilo. Well, I don't know if it's relevant what I'm going to ask, but for instance, well, I'm talking from the physical sciences. We have been working with the communities, and perhaps we have a very linear approach, and focus. But I see that these methodologies, we had a good time when we were doing the theater. I think it's very interesting because we all laughed, we all had a good time, and I think it's very good for them to accept it, in the methodologies. But my question is, if this methodology is possible to be scaled so that it can not only be used in the study cases, but also for a more global level, at the city level, for instance, taking consideration that the publics are going to be very, very, very different. And also that considering that theater is very private, that you can actually touch, as Viviana said. And talking about the reality that we are discussing, our ways to communicate with one another is through a screen now. So how can all these methodologies be updated, or how can they be adapted to our reality nowadays, and if we can actually scale them up to sea level? That was my question. Thank you, Cam. I think there's one more question from Alex. Can you hear me? I actually have more of a reflection than a question from some literature that I've been reading. Well, it's a series of authors that have been considered within the human geography, right? That basically that kind of bring up non-representational confrontations. They kind of understand the conception we have of reality in a different way, and they say that it's actually the result of relations that are established between people that emerge from a series of effects that are based on the subconscious. And these relationships are rationalized afterwards, and then is when we establish a framework of reality. So I think that part is a methodology that doesn't really talk about this, but it really carries along in an implicit way a lot of this theory, and I think it was interesting, right? Because we're talking about participatory methodologies, that which normally have a corporal element, I mean that the people that participate, mobilize, they do things with one another. So that opens up the possibility within the members that are participating from these methodologies to create new links that didn't exist previously. And these links are the ones that are going to be rationalized afterwards, creating new symbolic frameworks that can explain reality in a different way. I just wanted to complement this with a different point that I also think is very important. In an environment where we've had a very big crisis, a natural disaster, where the symbolic frameworks, for instance, the relationship between municipality and the government, or the municipality and the community, are hindered because the expectations, for instance, of the municipality are not met. That's a moment where basically the members that participate in these actions can redirect their relations to other people or to other groups, despite the fact that sometimes these effects are sometimes captured by other institutions or other groups. Well, I mean, Freire talks about finding the roots within, the oppressor roots within ourselves, but that's a rational process. But what this literature adds is that there's an emotional process that is not really rational, that goes previous to the rational process. And when a crisis takes place, along with the body or corporal actions can actually help us create this symbolic relationship. I just thought that was very interesting. Marina, Viviana, please. Thank you very much. Those were all very good questions. I cannot answer them all, but we'll try. Well, I think that Juan Gabriel's question, and also Camilo's, I think, talking about how we use these methodologies in spaces where there is no openness for people's opinion or experience can actually influence in decision making, right? That's kind of related to the question that said if we can actually use methodologies at a broader level, at the city level, for instance, or with actual decision makers. So in my experience, I think that the idea that participatory methodologies are this classical idea of going into the community of my town, separate them into groups and people just, work with their maps and whatnot. I think that we have evolved quite a bit from that. The usefulness of these methodologies has actually evolved. And it doesn't mean that a politician cannot participate in a process where we have humor, right? Or where there's a possibility to actually say something, of value. It's always possible. But we always have to take the context into consideration. And just as Viviana says, we have to take baby steps, We have to open up this space in a way that, the idea of designing the process with a with a lot of detail, with a very deep understanding of the context, so that we can know where we can actually include these methodologies and where we can't, so we don't hinder from the very first moment. So there's times where you can't and you mustn't use these methodologies. I'm not saying that we should all use them every time, everywhere. Right now, I'm working in a project in Mali, peace building, and most of you probably know what happened in Mali. There was a civil war, pretty much. And well, there's a conflict going on, and we've had to stop our work because the conditions are pretty much not there for these types of methodologies, right? So I could talk a lot about how we can include these methodologies in the virus context, and I'm sure that Viviana also has some experience in what we can and we cannot do in we're living right now, and there's a lot of things that we cannot do, particularly for this idea of this, the idea of the whole methodology, the body, the corporal element that it has. So you have to take that into consideration. But regarding Alex's reflection, I think that yes, I don't know the literature that you're talking about. I would like to get it if it's possible. But I think it's very much related to what I was trying to explain with this idea of the extended epistemology. I mean, the idea that there's different types of knowledges that are built from processes, as you say, emotional processes, and from that moving on to the rational element or propositional, as they call it. I think it's very much like the idea, And finally, Marco. Yes. Do these methodologies redefine the political element? As you have said, the trajectory is very long in Latin America. I mean, we aren't talking about new things necessarily, right? The relationship between the academic, researcher, stakeholder. I mean, I think it's just as it's possible, to come up. And I think it's the practical part nowadays. But we are delving deeper, as you mentioned, the new social movements. And that's opening up a space to understand how movements learn, not from our particular ethnographics, despite of how participatory it may be, but from those spaces themselves. I think that's a new level. I mean, we can be militants, right? We can walk along them, but to open up a space where their voice is actually heard, where they can actually make opinions. I think that in the North, particularly, it's something that we are looking for. So I think that it's not that PAR brings along something new. What it brings along, it's an idea of how we can systematize certain processes so that we can delve deeper, as I said, with the appropriate methodologies and methods, that allow us to do so, open up and research more in those democratic spaces. But we can also see that movements nowadays they're very different, right? I mean, they're far more scattered, and I don't know nowadays what the situation is like in Latin America. I mean, I worked there a few years back, but I think that now in my country, social movements aren't like they used to be. So I think that we're looking for a way to walk along them and open up spaces to listen to their voices. Thank you, Marina. We are a bit short of time. Viviana, I don't know if you have a comment before wrapping up the session. Yes, particularly talking about political theater. This idea of the theater as something political. Well, theater. I mean, all of us are political subjects. That's our nature. And independent, regardless of the type of theater we're presenting, Leninist, Marxist, I think that, everything changes, everything mutates, and it really goes along with the theater ideas that go along with. I mean, theater used to belong to a privileged class, a long time ago. And through democratization and popular emancipation, it moved from a closed space to the public space. And that's where we redefine, that sense of the political. the political of what theater means and its different representations as well and manifestations. So I think that the theater nowadays belongs to many people, to many classes, and in that sense, that's where we define the political theater. Not necessarily it has to be. Let's say that we also have different aesthetics, different ideas of what is beautiful, of what we consider beautiful. So I think that beyond beyond whatever the idea might be behind the theater, what we have to focus on is that it's been democratized. It belongs to the people now, and not only the theater, but the artistic representations. The museum as well is also part of the public, from the pedestrian, from the community. So in that sense, I think that it has been democratized, and that was just a short comment. So thank you very much, Viviana. Thank you very much, everyone. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. The hub only gives us one Zoom account, and we have another meeting now. So that's going to be my request, for the hub. And I just wanted to thank you all that have participated in this series. First of all, it was Jenny that, along Giuseppe and Marisa, invited us to reflect about the citizen science methodology as something that we can use in this project. Our second meeting, Jerry and Eva invited us to think about how these methodologies can actually be used with different stakeholders and actors. And actually, Eva presented through how she has used this type of methodologies, participatory methodologies, with institutions. And Jerry was telling us more about how different types of knowledge, scientific knowledge, can come together to work with participatory research. That's what Marina is talking about as well. So in a way, we have thought about examples before, and we are doing that in the hub already. And lastly, we had a theoretical meeting, yes, but also practical. And in this meeting, the one today, everything comes together. I think what Marina was saying. The participatory research methodologies are a way to think about knowledge. They're a way to think about how there are different types of knowledge and how we can bring them all together. And I think that it's a very interesting opportunity that we have in the hub. And I'd like to finish with this reflection, of we need to have designs, and we have to have methods that are innovative. We have to innovate in our practices, in our disciplines. We have to bring together different types of knowledge, and we have to listen to others. I think that's very important. We have to listen to others, all of us that are here, of course, but also the people that we are going to work with at the different levels. So I wanted to ask you more about all the 3 workshops, but I don't want to steal more of your time. So we're just going to send a small survey to all of you so that you can fill it out. Tell us, what did you think about these workshops? How do they support your practices? How do they help you? And to have this idea in mind of to innovate, but innovate to generate change. And I think that's our political stance, that for me, it's very clear that it's to do research that generates change. That's a lot, actually. There's a very big challenge. That's kind of utopic, kind of what Malena was saying in her message. So I thank you all very much. I thank Viviana, the neighbor, a lot. It's always been a pleasure to work with her, and Marina as well. I think that it's been an excellent, excellent meeting. I don't know if anyone needs or wants to say anything before saying goodbye. And yeah, also thank you very much for the colleagues of the museums in Quito. I think that we need to create a deeper conversation, actually thinking about how we can design our project along with you. There's very nice opportunities that we can that we can have, and we know a bit more about each other, about the work that we do. So I hope Malena can schedule a meeting so we can talk about more specific topics. Thank you very much, Malena. Anyone else? Anyone wants to say anything? No? No? I don't see. We all have to take theater classes. Yes. Of course, yes.
Terry,
Jenny, please.
can we just tell everyone that, of course, we're all going to see each other next week. We've been working over the last 2 days of making structure, and next week we're really, really going to hopefully hear from a lot of the researchers who've been working in Keto Hub. So I have a plan, we have a plan that will be coming into your inboxes. So we will see you all next week, hopefully, for our big monitoring, evaluation, and learning fiesta.
Muchas gracias, Jenny. Entonces, nos vemos el próximo viernes a la
Thank you
misma
very
hora.
much, Jenny. We'll see you next Friday at the same time. And this would be our last meeting for the series of workshops. So thank you very much from the beginning, everyone that's been here. I think it's been a very good space for all of us. And just, have a good afternoon. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Chao.
Chao,
Gracias,
gracias.
doctor.
Chao, chao, chao.